Okay. So, here we are, man.
Back to it.
Back to it. Kind of our thought for this episode is just kind of break down, really from both of our perspectives, what goes into just making a program, and maybe from a weekly perspective, what we put into our workouts, because there are a good amount of differences, I think, between our settings and kind of what we do on a day-to-day basis. So obviously I'm in the school building, you're more in the private sector. So there's a lot of differences that come between that. So just kind of giving our perspective of how we build training sessions, how we build, weekly training sessions, and kind of zooming out from there. So I guess just to start, like for my setting, as we've talked about multiple times before, but our biggest constraint is time, right? So our periods, this school year is a little different. We have, I think it's 5 extra minutes per period because we took out our homeroom. But anyways, that's nice for us because it gives us just a little bit more time, and it doesn't seem like a lot, but 5 extra minutes on top of, a 45-minute class is pretty big for us. So, if we have a 50-minute class, 5 minutes to change before and after. So that's 10 minutes out of it from there. So that knocks it down to 40 with a warm up and with, running through the actual workout and explaining it for a couple minutes. Really at the end of the day, it will boil down to about 30 minutes of work, right? So how do we get some quality work in those 30 minutes is really, what it comes down to in terms of my setting, and kind of, what dictates kind of what I do on each day. So, I have it pulled up here, just kind of like my outline, my weekly outline of kind of what movements I know I want to hit. And we'll go over this in a second, but just kind of, I like to do it I know each week, I know the movements that I want to hit. From there, it's like, okay, if I have, I guess to break down real quick, just our weekly, usually what a normal week looks like for us, we have, Monday through Friday, obviously. Mondays, we typically do like our sprints, our jumps, and our like change of direction stuff.
Okay.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we'll lift, and then Friday is usually treated as we usually do like some mobility stuff. Might do some core. Might use that a lot of times to like actually clean the weight room, because nobody ever touches this weight room outside of us in terms of cleaning it, which is a whole different discussion. But with that said, that's kind of like our weekly kind of setup. So with that, if I know we're lifting 3 days per week, that kind of gives me, okay, I know there's 3 days per week that we can get in, if there's, I think here I have, 3, 6, 9 plus 2, 4, 6. So 15 total movements in a week that I know I want to get in. And then from there, it's just kind of like a plug and play, based on, what that full day of training looks like. So that's kind of how, at least in terms of building a week out for me, that's kind of how I do it. Go ahead.
You said 15 or 16 different movements. Is that
Yeah.
what are there? It doesn't have to be specific to like we need to barbell bench. Where like this some concepts are like we need to hit this every week.
Yeah, so it's like, especially at the high school level with these kids, like I think the main thing that I try to do with that is just like, it's super simple. This is nothing groundbreaking, but it's like, okay, we need to get like a vertical push and a vertical pull, horizontal push and pull. I like to try to get, a single leg and a single arm movement in per week. Sometimes we don't have enough space to do, a single leg, knee dominant and hip dominant movement, but ideally we would. Same things with our single arm. We don't always have the space to do a single arm push and pull, especially not vertical and horizontal. But vertical push and pull, horizontal push and pull, a knee dominant, some type of squat variation, a hip dominant, usually some type of like RDL variation, single arm, single leg. And then from there, really depending on, where we're at in the program and during the school year, it just kind of depends on what else we hit outside of that. Like we really don't have a ton of time to do a lot of core stuff, which is why sometimes on Fridays we'll try to fit that in. But I just look at how the body moves, and like, okay, I need, especially with us training a whole bunch of different athletes and different experience levels in these kids. It's like, yeah, let's just move the most of the joints through, you know, their different kind of movement patterns or ranges of motions that they can do. So that's
Okay.
kind of how I break it down. How do you go about building, like, I don't know if you do a week, do you do I know sometimes people will do like start at the end, if you got 16
Work
weeks, work
backwards.
backwards.
Yeah.
So I don't know, how do you kind of put it together?
Um, for the most part, especially with like beginner level athletes, like our level 1 program it's like an 8-week program. Yeah, okay, here are the basic exercises I want to make sure they can do. A squat, a hinge, a push, a pull. That pretty much, yes, we'll do some vertical, yes, we'll do some horizontal as far as pushing and pulling. That's in every program. But I'm just super basics. Um, and then progress that out with volume or intensity. Especially that level 1 program, there's some like slow negatives or some holds at end range. But yeah, that's kind of how I structure it out.
Yeah. Um, I mean, just looking kind of at like the outline of kind of how I do it. Like last year was the first year where traditionally, at least for my first 4 years, I would do, we have a main movement, and then we would have usually typically 3 accessories that we
Okay.
do. Now, a lot of that, we've talked about this before. A lot of my decision making comes down to the logistics of the room.
Yeah.
Especially I think our biggest class this year is like 56 or 57 kids. And we have the room to accommodate it, but still, it's like, not to get too deep into it, but it's like, yeah, you have to make sure that the room and the workout flows correctly, So that also takes into account, or I have to take that into account when making the workout. But it's like, okay, is there any space for us to, add another exercise or do something more than what we're already doing? So last year in the spring, I think, was the first semester that we did it, but I would like superset something with our main movement, right? So like our main movement, typically we have 3 to 4 people working together at a rack. And it's like, yeah, I mean, okay, you have someone doing the movement, you have someone spotting, but if you have, a third and a fourth person really not doing anything, it's like, okay, maybe we have time to superset that main movement with, a simple accessory movement that we would traditionally have to fit in our 3 accessories, but when we do that, it just opens up a whole nother exercise slot. So we did that last year, like as an example, on our bench day would be Tuesday, so I superset that with a Cossack squat. And at least last year doing it, I'm pretty sure I did it the same way this year. But last year when setting up the program, like pretty much all of my training sessions, at least in class, are full body training sessions. We get into after school stuff, like if a team's lifting twice a week after school, like I'll probably do an upper and a lower. But for the most part, when we're in class, it's like, yeah, even if you bench as your main movement, you're going to do some lower body stuff as your accessory. And just a super simple reason for that, I have kids ask me, not so much anymore, but when I first started, well, why don't we do like like an upper day and a lower day? And it's like, you can. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, like as an athlete, like, if you're a soccer player, when you play your sport, do you just use your lower body and your upper body on different days? Obviously not. So it's like, yeah, I mean, if you're an athlete, especially when you're playing your sport, you're going to be using your full body. So I like to kind of just structure it that way, where it's like, yeah, we might bench as our main movement, but that supersetted accessory with that is going to be a Cossack squat. Again, this is super simple, just strength conditioning 101, but it's like, yeah, if you bench, and then say if you were to superset that movement with a lat pull down or, some type of other upper body exercise, like, yeah, you're going to be a little bit fatigued from doing 2 upper body movements back to back. Whereas if you have an upper and a lower, it kind of balances out in the sense of letting the upper body recover a little bit when you're doing the lower body. So it doesn't really affect what you get out of both exercises as much as it would if you go back to back in terms of upper and lower.
And especially it's a Cossack squat. It's not like you're like heavy bench and then heavy squat,
It's like, yeah, it's not, like Cossack squat is not very taxing on the body. And so, yeah, we did that last year and I thought it worked really well because, we added 3 more exercises throughout the week that we can do, or 3 more exercise slots that opened up. that we can then add something that we might have been missing before. So yeah, just to break it down like that. So like Tuesday we would do our bench press variation, working to a Cossack squat, and then our accessories were all, again, it looks like I have 2 lower body and 1 upper body accessory. So an RDL, a single leg variation, and then some type of like horizontal row.
Okay.
And to real quick go through the other 2 days. Wednesdays we would clean as our main movement. And then I added in a sissy squat for the accessories. That was our first time doing that last year. And I thought it worked pretty well. My main reason for adding that in, the sissy squat, is just in terms of quad development. Obviously, in working the quads, I think, I can't remember if we've talked about this on another episode or not, but like my first year or two, I was like really focused on, you hear it all the time, most athletes are quad dominant, you know what I mean? And like, okay, we have to counterbalance that and just do a whole bunch of posterior work, right? So hamstring, glute work, and all of that. And, you know, my first year at Snyder, we had, at least on the football team, we had 5 or 6 ACLs, you know, a good amount, which, again, I trained those kids for half a year before that season, you know?
Yeah.
But regardless, any situation like that, it really kind of makes you kind of sit back and zoom out and be like, man, what is going on here, you know? So
Anytime as a strength coach, when your athletes get injured, it sucks. Like
Yeah.
you're thinking about it.
and you know, a decent amount of those, I can't remember all of them specifically, but a decent amount of them were also like non-contact, you know? So it's like, man, it really kind of makes you like, man, what the hell? Like, am I fucking up here, you know? Like, and so I think one thing that kind of made me sit back and look at it, I guess one thing I got out of it was like, well, yeah, most athletes are quad dominant. We do a lot of like, you know, posterior chain work, but it's like maybe we're not doing enough quad work, you know, because outside of like our squats and maybe a split squat and some of the single leg stuff we did, a lot of the single leg stuff we did is really not loaded very heavily, if at all. And it's like, well, maybe we need to do more of just like more quad development. So I would add in, you know, earlier on after that year, I would add in, you know, like higher rep like split squats, right? Or I guess I started doing this maybe 2 or 3 years ago, but like specifically in the off season, I'll have them do like heels elevated like goblet squats for like sets of 20, you know, so lighter weight, but just like higher volume, just so like, again, just kind of like, especially at the beginning of the program, just to work a lot of volume and like hammer the quads. So bringing it all back to, that's kind of why I added the sissy squat. I mean, the sissy squat, at least in my perspective, is just kind of like a body weight leg extension. And you don't need any equipment to do it. And just kind of work, again, the quad and the front side of the knee. I think for a lot of our athletes, you know, we have, whether it's jumper's knee or things like that, we had a lot of different variations that we do. So we would have kids doing it off of a plate and touching their knees on the ground, which I didn't think we would.
That's insane. I
But-
saw the video from yesterday or whatever.
Yeah. We had kids, you know, knocking that stuff out. Not a ton of them, but a lot of kids, you know, would see other people doing it and be like, man, I can do that, you know, and like start working towards that. But then we also had a lot of kids, if they have like knee pain or if they've dealt with it in the past, and it's like, you know, you just have them lean up against the rack and just put your body at a forward angle, and then just drop your knees in and tap it and come back up. So pretty much all the athletes could do that. So again, wide variety of just different variations of what we would do that would work for that kid. But that was kind of the accessory on our clean day. And then we did, and now this changes on our clean day in the fall and the spring. In the fall, I'll focus on pretty much all single leg and single arm movements. So like either a skater squat, a pistol squat, some type of like, we would work into like single leg, like hamstring sliders, do a single arm bench. We really didn't do much single arm pulling just because we really don't have a ton of options available. We definitely could, but it's like, it's just a little difficult to build that in without a ton of like single arm cable setups and things like that, right? So in the fall, we focus on single arm, single leg movements on Wednesdays. And then in the spring on Wednesdays, we would switch it to like more of a dynamic effort type of day where it's like a pin bench or a pin squat or seated verticals, you know, different plyometric variations and things, which I think we did that for the past 2 years. And I think that worked pretty well. So depending on where we're at in the semester, kind of depends on what the accessories look like on that Wednesday. And then the Thursday, at least in the spring, would be a squat variation. Superset that with a TRX row, which is very similar upper lower kind of variation. A lot of those accessories that we would superset are our main movements, or with our main movements, I would just do it, especially at the beginning, just like high reps. So like TRX rows, a lot of our kids are used to doing it with their feet on the bench, like parallel to the ground, putting weight on their hips, which is great. But like with that, I think for the first like 3 or 4 weeks, I had them do like 3 by 15. It's like, hey, put your feet on the ground and just like knock them out, you know? And then looking at kind of how I build in those accessories on Thursdays, do like a distal hamstring, something I forgot to mention. I think something that is very important, especially for athletes. So some type of distal hamstring exercise. This I have on here in the spring. We did a landmine, but usually one semester we'll probably start with like a tall kneeling, like single arm dumbbell press, and kind of progress that. And the other semester do something very similar, but with a landmine, just to kind of increase the variability of it a little bit. And then pull-ups. Pull-ups last year was the first year that I added in pull-ups to the whole program, which I think we talked about before. But the pull-ups I think really paid off. We have a decent amount of kids that can't do pull-ups, which is fine. We'd have them do something on the with the lat pull down, but that's kind of just zooming out a little bit on the week. It's like, okay, I know if on Monday I want to hit, our main movement is an upper body movement, superset that with a lower body movement, and then do these 3 kind of accessories, or these types of accessories. Mm-hmm. When you build that out, at least for me, when you look at it week by week, it's like, okay, now I can just kind of like plug and play and like figure out what I want to do from here. And then it's easy enough after you've been doing it for a little bit. It's easy enough to figure out, how to regress and progress movements, where you want to start at, where you want to end at, and just kind of you can just kind of fill in the middle. So I don't know. I guess that pretty much.
No, that's perfect.
Pretty much covers the week of kind of how I do it. So
yeah, just like how to build a program, really.
Yeah.
And then again, kind of like you mentioned initially, like our settings are different.
Right.
So 45 minutes, you said?
I think now we have 50, I think,
50
for
minutes.
most classes.
That's that's including, well, how do I word this? Is that counting them changing in and changing out?
That's total, yeah.
Okay. And then my time typically is like unlimited, if that makes sense. Especially if they drive. Now there's people, hey, I gotta leave at this time, or my mom's getting me at this. Understandable. But for the most part, it's like you're gonna be there an hour and a half. Hour 15, hour and a half.
And how many kids on average do you have like in a group?
That's yeah. So you said, what's your biggest group?
Like 56, I think.
Yeah, I've never seen. We might see 56 in a good day.
Yeah.
Like for the whole day, but private sector is just a little different.
Sure.
So on average, I'd say 8 to 12.
And how many coaches?
At least 2, sometimes 3.
Okay.
Yeah. Completely different set. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, completely different set. The space, you got, how wide is this? 5 yards? 3 yards?
Couldn't tell you.
Ish?
Between there, 3
and
to 5.
It's what, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25? Okay. And we got like a 60-yard strip of like sprinting turf, and then like a bigger turf area for change of direction. There's like, I don't know how many basketball courts if the turf is busy with physical therapy. So a lot of room to like run and go. You got a good wall here, made it cinder block, but it's all mirrors.
Yeah.
We got a big wall, probably, I don't know, about this size, no mirrors.
Yeah.
So we can use it for med balls. So let's say like you get the athletes 5 days a week guaranteed, more or less. I gotta like hope that they show up at least 2 days, hopefully 3 days a week. If they're in season, like there's different times where things change. But in the off season, I'm telling the athlete and the parent, it needs to be at least 2 days a week, hopefully 3. Sometimes it's 4, but not often.
Okay.
So 3 days a week. Typically, our first day of the week is going to be like a max velocity sprint. We'll do flies or like 40-yard races, 30-yard races, things like that. So max velocity sprint. Day 2 is typically going to be some sort of change of direction or like curved running.
Okay.
And again, we have space to do different variations of S runs or figure eights or chases and relay races. And then day 3 is more of an acceleration-based sprint, shorter distance, maybe pushing a sled, maybe pulling a sled.
Okay.
So those are going to be the 3 like sprint movements. And I guess I jumped ahead a little bit. Well, we start with a warm-up. Warm-up for us is going to take 15 minutes. Like movement, 20 yards, jogging, doing skips, doing different movements, crawls. What's your warm-up like?
I forgot to mention that. So it depends on the day. Like if we're sprinting, like on our Mondays, we'll go into the gym and do like more actual active warm-up type of thing. But like when we're lifting, it's literally like, and I changed this last year, the year before. We used to do like, I used to have them getting 3 lines like down here and do like, 10 or 15 yards. And it's like, dude, we got 55 kids in a class. It's like, you got 3 kids working at a time. Like we'll do 2 or 3 movements and we're already 7 minutes into our warm-up. Like really our warm-up, if we can keep it 5 to 6 minutes, like that's probably the ideal point. Because if we can keep between the warm-up and walking through the actual lift and explaining what we're doing and making sure we're all on the same page, like that shouldn't really, it can't take any longer than 10 minutes, you know? So instead of the 3 lines, now I'll just have them like, okay, we all spread out on the turf, you know, one person on that side of the turf, one person here, you're facing somebody, and we'll start with something that gets your heart rate up. So high knees, jumping jacks, burpees, you know, something along that that we'll do for 30 seconds. You know, pretty much everything we do is time-based because I've found when I give the kids, you know, oh, do 30 jumping jacks. You know, they're not doing that shit. You know, they're going to wait till the first person's done. Yeah, I got 30 in.
Yeah, I see that too.
You know, so it's all time-based. You're working off of my clock. So like nobody stops until I say stop, you know. So we'll do something to get your heart rate up, and then depending on what the day is, like on our bench press day, we'll do shoulder circles. We got a whole little series that we do. We'll do some push-ups with a downward dog. And even then, like with our days in class being full body, like we'll always do upper and lower body. So do some type of lunge variation, whether it's a side lunge or a knee pull into a lunge with a twist or a reach, or a reverse lunge with a reach, some type of like, in most kids that feels good, you know, like tell them, hey, it's not after the first one that we do where we get our heart rate up, like there's no rush. Like you just, you know, like move around a little bit. Like we're not trying to kill you with these warm-ups. We're just trying to get warm. So we'll do some type of variation of that. We might do leg swings. We might do, again, push-ups with a downward dog. Once we get to the floor, we'll usually do some type of like more dynamic stretch. So like kids love like the world's greatest different variations that we do, like pigeon pose variations, things like that. But again, trying to make it a little bit more active in nature or a little bit more dynamic in nature than, hey, we're just going to hold this, you know, 30 seconds each side. So still, even when we're stretching, like we still make it a little bit more dynamic. We might add a little bit of core in at the end. But if we can do heart rate, get your heart rate up, if we can do like 2 upper, 2 lower, and maybe 1 core, like that's really pretty much what our warm-up is.
Yeah.
So
our warm-ups, they can take a while.
Yeah.
I didn't write the warm-ups.
But you can also, I mean, with, you know, even with a warm-up like that, the one that takes longer, it's like, if you have 10 or 15 minutes for a warm-up, it's like, sure, you're getting warm, but you can teach skills through that warm-up.
It's a lot of different movements. It's all different types of planes of motion, different varieties of like coordination that you need for some of the stuff. It's well thought out. It was by Scott Sharland, who strength conditioning for 20 years at college level. There's like 9 different variations of these warm-ups, and they progress in difficulty, skill level, coordination, and like intensity.
Sure.
They're well thought out. Yeah, they're just sometimes take forever.
Take a while. Yeah.
And kids are like, especially the first warm up. Sorry, going on a little tangent. So it's the beginner level one, and so none of it is like high. There's some sprinting in it. There's some skips for height, but it's not like single leg plyometrics.
Yeah.
It's not like super intense, and it's not super difficult from a skill perspective. So the only thing you can kind of fall back on is it's a lot of moving.
Yeah.
It's like jog down, karaoke back. Okay, jog down, face the other way, karaoke back. Okay, jog down, crossover run. Jog down, other way. Jog down, cross under. Jog down, other. It's just like, just a lot of movements. But yeah, so, okay, we warm up 10, 15 minutes. A lot of different movements like I just discussed. Some crawling, some stretching, some good stuff. 15-ish minutes of either a max velocity sprint, change of direction curve run, or an acceleration sprint. After each of these like 15-minute blocks, as far as like in my head, get water. Okay, warm up. Okay, get water. Set up the next thing. Okay, we run sprints, got the times down. Okay, get water. Then go to the next thing. Next thing is either going to be plyometrics, lower body, jumping. Again, there's like a variety of different movements, whether it's extensive like pogo hops or intensive like skater lunge jumps where it's more single leg, broad jump. There's progressions to all of them as well. And so we're either doing plyometrics or we're doing medicine ball throws. Med ball throws, you can kind of think of it as an upper body plyometric. Maybe not true plyometric, but upper body power.
So the average weight that those kids use, like for med balls.
So coach's discretion. Weirdly enough, I don't know if you've ever seen, we have a 100-pound med ball there.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, a former coach, like, just like everyone, just like you guys, there's a certain budget. And it's like, all right, let's get 3 heavy kettlebells and 3 heavy med balls. That coach is no longer there. No one uses it. And even when he or she was there, never got touched. But maybe in rare cases, but you could do that stuff with a dumbbell.
Yeah.
Anyway, little rant. But typical weight, I normally tell them 6 to 8 pounds.
Okay.
There's some days where I'm like, grab the 10 or grab the 12. That's as far as I'll go. Maybe there's some college athletes. It's like, you got the 16. There's a college lineman we had. It's like, you're getting the 16 or you're getting the 12. But for the most part, like, I want it light, I want it fast, I want it explosive. So we're warming up 15 minutes. We're sprinting, some sort of speed, agility, quickness, 15 minutes. Some sort of power for 15 minutes, jumping or throwing. And then we go into the lift.
Yeah.
45 minutes has passed. Now we go lift. So that's kind of like how each of those days are built out. Day 1 with max velocity, we're always going to jump. Day 2 with change of direction or curved running, we're always going to throw med balls. Day 3, we're depending on the athlete and their sport, we're typically going to jump, but we could throw med balls again. And then the weight room. So again, I'm thinking 3 days a week. Every day is full body. Because sometimes, again, athlete might show up 2 days a week, might only show up 1 day that week. So everything's always going to be full body for me. My day 1, again, this is for beginner, but this framework is what I use up through, for the most part, until you get to like college athletes.
Okay.
Day 1, main movement is going to be like a lower body, typically, day 1, lower body squat. Goblet squat variations, zombie squats, which I've seen you and one other coach really consistently do. I'm like, man, it just makes sense. So that's like a little micro progression. Front squat, back squat, typically the progression. Not within the course of 8 weeks, within the course of maybe a year. So main movement 1, goblet squat, then upper body pull for this level 1 workout is inverted row. Then the second exercise, or third exercise, second lower body exercise is a hinge, a dumbbell RDL. Next is incline push-ups, or push-ups if they can. A lot of these athletes on this program would be middle school. So a lot of them are doing push-ups like hands on a bench.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be some sort of abs or hamstring rollers as they progress, Nordic curls, things like that as they finish, or a carry for abs like suitcase carry, farmer carry, overhead carry, or just straight up like hanging leg raise, V-ups, single leg V-ups, movements like that.
Yeah.
Day 2. Day 2 will start with, you could look at it as like a hinge. I'm thinking more like Olympic derivative.
Okay.
So RDL shrug, or like a clean pull. This is going to be the first movement. Then we're going upper body push, upper body press, dumbbell overhead press. single leg for the lower body, reverse lunges, upper body pull, chestboard row, and then we got sliding ham curls, ab rollouts. So it's literally all of my, for the most part, all of my workouts follow that progression.
Yeah.
At least with these type of athletes. Day 3 is trap bar deadlift, so a lower body main movement. Then chin up variation, whether it's chin up hold or negative or for actual reps. So upper body pull. Back extension, you have 1, 2?
2 GHRs?
Yeah, we only have 1, but again, smaller group size, so we can get away with it. Back extensions, and then a different push-up variation, whether it's push-up hold or push-up negative.
Yeah.
Overhead carry, hand walkouts for abs, send them on their way.
So is that 6 exercises per day?
4 main ones, and then 2 either a hamstring carry or a very traditional ab exercise. Yes.
Yeah.
Typically 6 exercises.
Okay. How long does that normally take?
It's a good question. So since our format is less structured than in here,
Yeah.
you're like, hey, we got you for 50 minutes where at different times of the year, and I don't know if you still do this where it's on the clock.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Everyone's kind of got, hey, I'm doing this workout today, I'm doing that workout today. So everyone kind of flows a little bit differently there. Typically, the middle school, early high school athlete, they can finish that in probably 30, 35, 40 minutes, maybe 30, yeah, somewhere in there. The more advanced they get and the heavier weights that they're using, the longer it's going to take them.
Yeah.
Just with recovery, and maybe just out of not being in a rush.
Yeah.
It's interesting seeing different types of athletes. I'm sure you see this as well. We got cross-country runners that come in, and they finish that in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because they're supersetting stuff. They're not using that heavy weights. They're so used to moving at a constant pace.
Yeah.
And then there's a golfer who was in Friday, and it took this guy an hour and a half. But think of golf. It's one hard, explosive movement.
Yeah.
And I'm not discrediting all the walking that goes into it, but then a lot of rest.
Yeah.
And man, he was moving at his pace.
Well, and that's kind of you see that a lot, like you were saying with cross-country runners, you see that a lot with wrestlers, who are just always on go,
Do you still see it here compared to, because I remember you telling me that when you were in college.
Yeah.
In grad school. Do you still see that here with wrestlers?
I mean, a little, the ones that are serious about it.
Yeah.
But again, a lot of times it's with our time constraints, we really don't ever tell somebody, well, I shouldn't say that. It's rare for us to tell somebody to slow down, and it's mainly just with our main movements, tell the kids all the time, there's certain sports that, we'll give them 15 minutes for a bench or a squat, and, they're 9 minutes into our 15 minutes and they're done. And it's so over the past couple of years, I've started telling them, if you finish your 5 working sets and you look up and there's more than a minute left on the clock, you're going to do 3 or 4 more working sets. So it's maybe add a little bit of weight, and especially as you get heavier, just communicating with them, hey, it's okay to take 2 minutes of rest in between your set. If you're going back to back, you're probably not going heavy enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is interesting how different sports kind of have different kind of gears for how they finish things. But yeah, like you said, cross country, wrestling, they're just so used to always being on the go. Sometimes those are the kids that we have to be hey, catch your breath.
Yeah.
We're not wrestling right now.
Yeah.
You're not running a 5K right now. But yeah, other sports are, kind of try to take their sweet time, and
some too much.
Yeah, and do things like that. So I mean, that's something that you kind of brought it up, but in terms of, for us, again, just related to the time constraint, pretty much everything we do is off the clock. If I didn't have that clock, it'd be a shit show in here.
Yeah.
Because
everyone's finishing at different times, moving on. Yeah.
And it's so we're all, when one person is benching or squatting or cleaning or doing our main movement, we're all doing that. It's And then I think we covered this in the episode that we did with the actual breaking down the high school program, but it's like for our accessories, like, to review, I didn't do this my first semester because my first year of working in a high school, I was at a different high school, which was on a block schedule. We had 90 minutes. We had more than enough time. I would give it 15 minutes to shower afterwards, because it's like, yeah, I mean, we're, an hour and 15 minutes in and we're pretty much done, you know? So anyways, now obviously it's much different, but I was used to, having a little bit longer time per period. And also the group of kids that I had out there were very blue collar and like, we're not afraid of hard work. Whereas here, some kids are like that, but most kids are not from that background. And, my first semester, like I didn't run anything off the clock. And it's like, yeah, it's so easy for kids to be like, oh yeah, I did it, and it's like, well, you got 55 kids in a class. It's like, you get better as a coach, like to find spots, especially when you get comfortable with a room, like to find spots where you can stand and spend 30 seconds and you can see who's doing what and who's not doing what.
Yeah.
But, earlier on, it's like, hey, especially if you're not sitting there blatantly watching them, like you don't want to accuse a kid of lying, but you're like, there's no fucking way you did this shit,
Yep.
So, yeah, it was after that and talking to Congdon and Tip, it's like, yeah, I need to figure something out of how to make this more efficient. And yeah, I mean, the clock is the answer to that. And even when I talk to other high school strength coaches and like, especially, we've had, I think Lucas and I are the only two that are still like around from the first group of hired coaches. So like the coaches that would come on, a lot of them do a good job of like, asking questions, which I'm all about. I love sitting down and talking about that stuff, especially if it's going to make it more efficient for those guys. But it's like, yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I harp on them. It's like, hey, you can run it how you want. But like we've noticed, especially at least with the kids that are here, it's like, man, running it off the clock it's night and day difference.
Yeah.
Especially with the accessories. Like, again, this is review, but like, when we're in our accessories, it's two people working together. So you and I are working together. We both have 30 seconds or 35 seconds. So if we're doing, whatever movement I had on there, if we're doing, like a TRX row, or if we're doing, I guess that's an accessory that we superset with. But if we do like a single arm, dumbbell press, it's like, yeah, you have 35 seconds to get 8 reps in on each arm while I'm spotting.
Yeah.
And then the bell rings, or the clock rings. We got 5 seconds to switch. Now it's my turn. You're resting and spotting. So it's like, when you base it off of that, it's like, hey, when we're on 35 seconds, someone should be going.
Yeah.
And if you look around and both of us aren't doing anything, it's
a problem.
Yeah, it's a problem. And it's easy as a coach to be like, well, what's going on?
Yeah.
And the kids can't argue it. It's like, oh, we started early. It's like, well, if you start early, then you're going to do more sets. Like just listen to what we ask you to do, like follow the clock. It's pretty simple. Oh yeah, we started early. Okay, we're going to you're going to get some extra work in, because everybody else is still working. So the clock is a big thing for us. If anybody's out there that, not necessarily athlete wise, but yeah, I guess athlete too, but mainly coaches, if you're on a time constraint, like the clock will be your best friend. What I mean? Like it really will. It'll change the whole dynamic and the whole structure of the workout. Because again, you can't argue with, you set it up in a way like during these 12 minutes or 15 minutes of your main movement, like if there's more than 1 minute left on the clock, you should still have weight on your bar.
Yeah.
If it's an accessory and it's in the 35 seconds, like someone's moving. It doesn't matter who it is, but someone should be moving.
Yeah.
So it's hard. It's almost impossible to argue with. And again, it just keeps you kind of on track and it keeps you structured. And the clock goes a long way for us. But it's just interesting thinking, like hearing how you set it up. I think that's something that would be good for us to do. Like you guys sprint pretty much every day that you're in there, or change direction.
We try to. Yeah.
You're doing some type of sprint, plyo, like fast movement with a med ball throw or whatever it is, like, on each of those days. Whereas we have really, one day, our Monday, when we do our sprint, plyos, change of direction stuff. And in the spring, that Thursday is more of, especially being or I guess it's Wednesday, being more of a dynamic movement day. I've tried to add that in because it's like, yeah, we should really probably be, sprinting and jumping like at least twice a week. But then it's like, in terms of sprinting, again, like it's like you got 55 kids in a class and you have a 4 yard by 23 yard section of turf. It's like we have one sled, there's no way we can use that.
Not scalable.
Not scalable, and it's like, yeah, we can't send half. We could, but it wouldn't work in terms of sending half the class into the gym to sprint and then half the class stays in here and lifts. It's like, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's just it's going to split everything up. And depending on, what other coach I have in here with me, who knows if they're going to be busy to be able to help out, or, it's just would make things more complicated than necessary. So it's like, but that is something that I think one of the benefits of not being, limited with time necessarily, it's like, yeah, you have enough time to do a full, complete warm up where you're not only warming up, but you're teaching coordination and different technical movements, and you have time to sprint and rest and reset. If you have 10 kids in a group, it's like, yeah, even though that the turf at the field house is like pretty narrow, it's like, yeah, I mean, you have enough space in there to have 10 kids run through a sprint and still give them enough rest. All that stuff. So that's something that I'm kind of jealous of in terms of having a little bit more freedom to do those higher intensity movements, more consistently throughout the week, just with not only the space, but, the time constraint as well, or lack of, I guess. So,
All right, so maybe to end on, if you're a high school athlete, and I'll go first. High school athlete, you got 3 days a week to work out, lift. I don't know, you got 45 minutes, an hour, whatever we used to do at Max Fitness, not what Saad used to do. And you got your 3 days, an hour, high school athlete. Like, what are some of they don't even have to be exercises, but they can. As far as, you don't have to say back squat, but it could be squat. How are you telling them to build a workout?
Yeah.
So for me, if I'm sticking, I'll probably, for the most part, use what I already have said. But you have an hour, 3 days a week, you're gonna warm up, you want some sort of, it doesn't necessarily have to be both sprinting and jumping or sprinting and throwing med balls, but you want one of those, I would say. You want some sort of fast, explosive movement. I mean, at the end of the day, you're an athlete.
Yeah.
Like, you should do athletic stuff. Maybe it doesn't take up it doesn't take up as much time as what I'm doing with athletes. But being fast and explosive, like we've both said before, sports are not played slow. Like, you got to do something fast. So let's start with that. Warm up, sprint, jump, or throw med balls. Something fast and explosive. And that can change 3 days a week. You could sprint, you could jump, you could throw. You could jump, sprint, jump. Doesn't matter. Something fast and explosive. Let's say that takes you a total of 20 minutes. 40 minutes to lift. I mean, I do like this is what's worked well for me and my bias. But a lower body main movement, you probably typically, if in my head you're going full body, for the most part you're going to want to start with legs. It's going to be bigger muscle groups, going to be more taxing. So whether that's a squat variation, a deadlift variation, a hinge variation, Olympic variation, some sort of lower body movement, an upper body push or pull. You talked about horizontal versus vertical. I think incorporating both of those in there, not the same day, but so one day you're doing push-ups, next day, and I think push-ups get discredited too much, but I digress. Push-ups, some sort of bench press, some sort of incline, some sort of dumbbell variation, or overhead press, either barbell, landmine, or dumbbell. Then a lower body single leg or just direct posterior chain. So that could be, for some athletes, that will get up to like heavy hip bridges. For some athletes, we're doing heavy RDLs. Sometimes we're just doing reverse lunges or step ups, split squats, some sort of single leg or direct posterior chain. Upper body pull, TRX rows. I love TRX rows. Pull-ups, dumbbell row, cable row, lat pull down, chessboard row. There's a lot of variations there. I think if you get those four, if you have time for an ab or something like that afterwards, cool. If you're doing a single arm or a single leg exercise and you're sprinting and jumping,
Yeah.
you're getting in some good core.
Yeah.
And throwing, just my opinion. But I think if you kind of use that template, I think you'll be in a good spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think, because I have a decent amount of kids that, I'm working out on my own. Like, how should I structure it? And, especially if I'm not writing the actual workout, but just giving them an outline. I agree with if you're an athlete, out of those 3 days, at least 2 out of the 3, you should be doing some type of,
Sure.
fast, explosive movement. So usually how I would structure this, and this kind of goes against kind of what I first said. But again, I think the key here is if I'm not writing the workout, if the kid's writing their workout and they're just looking for an outline, I'll tell them go 1 upper day, 1 lower day, and 1 full body day.
That's a common way to do it too.
The full body day, I'll have them focus on like mainly single arm and single leg movement, like unilateral work. So again, if I sit down and write the workout, like, it's easier for me to plug and play of do a full body workout every day. But if it's like, hey, how do I write my own workouts? Like, keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
Upper, lower, full body day. On the upper day, I would do, I would start with some type of explosive movement. So like either a pin bench or like a banded plyo push-up that we do, or, last year we played around a little bit with like a med ball throw, like a supine med ball throw, so laying on the floor and throwing it as high as you can. If you have the option to do like a med ball throw, like against a wall, that's a great, like you said, upper body plyo. So some type of fast explosive movement for your upper body. And then I would go into, again, whatever your main movement is, probably some type of bench press variation. Or a lot of times I'll tell kids, like, you could, like a pull-up can easily be a main movement. Like if you want your pull-up to be your main movement, like that's not a bad idea. Like I'm a fan of that, especially if you get into weighted pull-ups and things like that. Like that's a legit movement. So I would say probably stick with your main movement be a bench press. And again, when you're working out in a public gym, it's like, it's not always realistic to superset those movements. So I tell a kid, if you're able to, go ahead and superset the movement. It'll just make it a little bit quicker and you'll have more room to add in exercises. So just as an example, you might do a bench press, a bench press variation for your main movement. And then we might superset. Usually if I have someone doing like a horizontal push, like a bench press, I'll have them do a vertical pull in terms of a superset, right? Just kind of, you're still working similar movement or similar muscles, but kind of, what's the technical word I'm looking for? What's the antagonist, protagonist type of muscle thing, right? That brings me back.
Protagonist, bro, you're talking characters. Movies. Alex is sick, by the way.
My brain's a little foggy, but you know what I mean, man. So you'll do so I'll have to do a bench press and like maybe a lat pull down. Really, preferably not a pull up. You could do a pull up, but those are 2 pretty taxing movements back to back, right? So if we do that, then it's like, okay, you got your horizontal push and your vertical pull in. Then on your next superset, then we'll do just the opposite of that, right? So I might have you do like a tall kneeling, like shoulder press variation where it's a vertical push and now we need a horizontal pull. So a TRX row, an inverted row, a cable row, bent over row, anything like that. So that's 4 exercises right there. If you have time at that point, you're probably, if you're moving quickly or at a good pace, you probably still have, 10-15 minutes left. It might be something like, maybe do some core and a bicep and a tricep, on your upper body day. Just as something that, a little bit, build a little bit of muscle, get a good pump and still hit a little bit of core. So that'd probably be more or less my upper body day. Lower body day, same kind of concept. I would sprint. I like to, again, if capable, I like to superset a sprint and a jump.
Me too.
Back and forth. And again, it's important with those explosive movements to take your rest in between, especially, again, if you're constrained by time, or if you have an hour, you still want to go quick, but it's like, man, I'd rather you get 3 sets of like a 12-yard sprint and, like a 3 hurdle hop, type of plyometric. I'd rather you get 3 sets with, 2 minutes of rest in between than try to do 4 or 5 sets and not get fully recovered, especially with your fast movements, right? So yeah, some type of sprint, some type of plyometric, and we can get into all the different types of variations that, you can do with those movements.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't even spend time breaking that down. Some type of sprint, some type of jump. And then from there, again, it's like, okay, if your main lower body movement is a squat variation or even like a trap bar deadlift, or, if you want to do a straight bar deadlift, you can pick any of those as your main movement, but stick with a squat because that's usually what I do. Some type of squat variation, and then superset that squat variation with, some type of either posterior chain work. But again, I wouldn't do a heavy RDL with back to back with a back squat. I've done it personally myself, like you can do it, but I would probably prefer them to do, if your squat is your main movement, then maybe do something, you still work on your posterior chain, but like a hamstring slider or, like a Nordic ISO maybe, which is a little bit more intense, but on a GHR,
Yeah.
or something that works the posterior chain, but just not as taxing as like a heavy bilateral RDL. So squat, call it a hamstring slider, right? Now the next two exercises where we superset, again, it's the opposite of what we just did. So if you did a knee dominant squat, then now it might be time to do an RDL variation, and then superset that with like a sissy squat or a heels elevated like lighter weight goblet squat, mm-hmm. or something that again is more knee dominant but a little bit less taxing than what a heavy back squat would be, right? So if we call it an RDL, bilateral RDL superset with a heels elevated goblet squat for sets of 15, like that's now 4 exercises, and then end with some type of, this is something that I haven't done enough of in the past, but I think I added it in this. Yeah, I did add it in this year, but some type of like calf work.
I knew you were about to say calf, yeah.
Some type of calf work, because that's one of those that kind of goes like underlooked.
I agree.
I think especially when it's like, we're constrained by time, and it's like, calf raises really aren't, a high priority movement, mm-hmm. for me, especially when, at least for the first 4 or 5 weeks, we do a lot of like rudiment movements where it's like, take shoes off, do ankle hop series, you're working the lower leg.
Yeah.
But I would probably finish with some type of calf work, some type of core, and then, really it could just stick with those two.
Yeah.
Calf work, core, those would be exercise 5 and 6. You should be able to get that done within an hour. And then the last day, just to quickly go through it, single arm, single leg movement. I'd have your main movement. You could sprint and jump, but I'd probably tell them like, depending on when, if it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, depending on what the week looks like, it's like on that single leg and single arm movement, maybe don't sprint and jump at the beginning, if you already got 2 of those in the other days, and it's like, we'll do a pistol squat variation, and we'll do, maybe like a kickstand or a V stance RDL, mm-hmm. And then again, superset that. The next 2 movements we might do like a single leg, if possible, single leg hamstring slider. If you can't do that, usually for most people it's a little bit easier to do a single leg like stability ball hamstring curl. Yep. But again, something to work the hamstring in a single leg manner. You can even do, especially with the stability balls, you can do like 2 in, 1 outs, mm-hmm. Where you use 2 legs to bring it in, but just focus on 1 leg on the eccentric portion of the movement. So I might call it a single leg hamstring curl, and then superset that with maybe like a split squat or a lunge variation.
Yep.
And then we'll do, that's all lower body, isn't it? So we need some upper body, right? Am I at 4 already? So skater squat, slider.
Yep.
Or no, skater squat,
B stance.
Yeah, B stance. Okay, yeah. So I was ahead of myself. Skater squat, scratch all that. I'm going to go skater squat, and then we're going to go probably like a single arm, like dumbbell bench, right?
Okay.
And then we'll do probably like a B stance or a kickstand RDL, and then do some type of maybe like a high row, like from a cable or like a machine, right? Mm-hmm. So now we have a single arm push, a single arm pull, mm-hmm. and both of those are supersetted with a knee dominant and more of like a hip dominant movement. So now that's 4 movements there. And then again, for your last, that shouldn't take you that long. Maybe with single arm, single leg, it takes a little bit longer, but And then say if we call it at the end, again, especially with high school athletes, like I think there's a lot of benefit to doing, if you have the time and space for it, to doing some type of like core and like arm farm work where it's like, yeah, it helps with your confidence. You get a good pump and like you feel good at the end of it. So it might be something like, yeah, pick like, one exercise you like for bicep, tricep, and shoulder, or like do some shrugs or do something that, again, that sure might not be super specific to the sport that you play, but again, it helps you kind of feel good and gives you something to look forward to, at the end of the workout and things like that. So that's probably kind of how I would structure those 3 days. A little different than what I would do if I actually wrote the workout, but if it's a high school kid or even a college kid that's writing their own workouts, that's probably kind of the outline that I would give them of this is how I'd break it down and kind of, pick the exercises that feel best for you and kind of plug and play from there.
Yeah.
So just keep it as simple as possible, and it's easy enough. We haven't really talked much about how to progress those movements and sets and reps and all of that stuff. But,
oh no, I think you did whatever episode that was.
Yeah, and that was a little
bit.
You did. That was a little bit more in depth, but this one just in terms of mainly exercise selection and kind of how to pick and choose and how to structure, I think, a pretty well put together weekly kind of, program. I think that gives a pretty good overview of how to do it, and just gives ideas of, because if you don't have a structure, if you don't have an outline to follow, it's like, dude, the chances of your workouts being put together like in a somewhat efficient manner is probably gonna be pretty low.
No, you're walking into the gym and like, well, I feel like doing
what should I do today?
Yeah.
If you ever,
We've been there.
We've definitely been there. If you ever find yourself in that situation, it's like, maybe like, it's better than nothing. It's better than not going to the gym at all. But it's like, maybe, spend a little bit of time and create a basic structure that you can follow.
Yeah.
You don't have to follow to a T, but something that will just give you an outline of, okay, today's my upper body day, and I know I want to get in 5 or 6 different movements. Even if you don't know necessarily what those movements are, you should. But if you don't know, at least you have a structure and an outline of kind of what you want to get done, rather than maybe I'll do a little bit of this, and then we'll see what machines open after that, and kind of go from there. So I think that gives at least just some practical, advice of, if you're out there and don't have access to a program or are just interested in how to structure a program like that. I think that's kind of surface level, but, gives you a good kind of starting point of like, how do you really think about putting this together and actually creating a program rather than I think there's a good amount of people, especially in the private sector, that don't do that.
Yeah.
That are more like, today we're going to do like 10 minutes before the work, the
What's
kids
the
come
workout of the day?
Yeah,
and you write it on the board.
Yeah.
Man, that might be everyone else in Fort Wayne.
Yeah. There's a lot of people you can just tell by the exercises and just, what they do on a Monday and what they do on a Wednesday. It's like, I don't know how much thought process really goes into.
Bro, don't get me started.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. A lot of that goes on. So, I mean, even related to that, if the person that you work with and that's coaching you in your athletic performance journey does not have, maybe this is a good test. Maybe you ask your coach, hey, what are we doing 4 weeks from now? You show me what we're doing 4 weeks from now. And if they can't, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's if they can't, maybe ask them what you're doing next week.
Yeah.
Hey, what are we doing next week? If they can't show you what you're doing next week.
And why is it progressing like that? What's the progression to this?
Yeah.
Maybe not even exercise, but like the volume and the intensity. Like, why is it progressed that way? What's this doing?
Yeah. Maybe that's a good litmus test for, because I think this is a whole different discussion. But just it's common for people that were really good athletes or people that have a really good physique to get into strength conditioning and coaching and things like that. And some of them do a great job. There's a lot of them that are like, just have the perspective of, I was a good athlete, so I can make people good athletes. It's like, sometimes you can, but if you don't have a good understanding of just the basics of programming and how to structure things, it's like, maybe people shouldn't be paying you $80 or $100 to go train for an hour if you're literally fucking writing up the workout 10 minutes before the kids get there. We could do a whole we could do a whole episode on our beef with, the strength and conditioning industry as a whole.
Yeah.
That's a different discussion. But yeah, athletes out there, next time, if you're in the private sector and if you have a trainer, ask them what ask them to show you 4 weeks from now, what are you doing? And if they can't pull it up on their computer or on their fucking notebook, and if they can't pull it up, if they don't have it structured,
You found the right coach. You found the right. Keep going there.
you need to
Keep
get the hell
there.
out of there. No, fuck, you need to get the hell out of there. But no, I think that's good, man. I think that gives a good kind of outline of, kind of how to, just the basic structure of building a strength conditioning program. And I think we're trying to, more so, like the more we do these, trying to at least have topics that are more digestible and applicable to, athletes and coaches alike that are trying to learn, that are trying to really do things the right way. And obviously we don't have everything figured out.
Not at all.
We're still learning every week and figuring shit out. But it's, the more you do this, kind of the more you learn what works and what doesn't, and just kind of how to structure, what you put together.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
Anything else?
Good. No.
All good? So,
Yeah.
well, keep knocking it out, man. We'll keep chopping wood, carrying water, you know what I mean?
And we got some more fun stuff coming up.
Yeah, we do. We got some shit coming up, man. We got some good things on the docket. So, thank you guys for listening, and stay tuned. We got some more good stuff coming out.